Hi everybody, so this is a review of two parts. The first part came from when I was just playing the normal online multiplayer mode, mainly Conquest, mainly on the new Stranded map, and that led me to certain conclusions. And the second part came after I discovered more about another mode in the game and played a lot of it, but you'll have to wait for that until the end. So this is the first part based on my notes as I was playing the game. So I finished my 10-hour trial of Battlefield 2042, so it's time to try and answer the question, after all the updates to the game since its disastrous release, is Battlefield 2042 now worth buying cheap? Just bear in mind that I am playing this on a quite powerful PC, gaming PC. It's got the NVIDIA RTX 3070 graphics. I'm playing it at 1080p and I get over 100 frames per second. Most of the time dips a little bit on ultra settings, but it all runs very, very smoothly and looks very, very nice. I'm also normally a really big Battlefield fan, a really big Call of Duty fan, and I believe that as first-person shooter gamers, we all suffer when there isn't a new great Call of Duty or a great Battlefield game. I think that when Battlefield or Call of Duty are at their best, they are one of the best shooter experiences, or one of the best experiences you can have when playing video games. So, straight away, Battlefield 2042, to me anyway, feels like a much different game than it did when it launched. The gameplay and the gunplay feels kind of a cross between Battlefield 4 and Call of Duty. It's a fun twitch shooter, run and gun, not that tactical. There's lots of gadgets that can spot you, so you tend to, you get set up, you kill someone, and then you get killed by someone else straight away. But what's really good is the respawn time is really fast, and you get back into the action really fast, just like Call of Duty. So for me, Battlefield 2042 feels like a good COD. Better than something like Vanguard, because it's rewarding that fast movement, that aggressive gunplay, twitch shooting skills, and doesn't reward as much the more considered tactical gameplay that you could use in Battlefield 1, Battlefield 5, or even to a certain extent in Battlefield 4. If Battlefield 2042 had been like this in the beta or the launch, I would have probably purchased it, even though it's more like a Call of Duty than a Battlefield. Because just like a good Call of Duty, it's good, casual FPS fun. I mean, we're not hitting the heights of Battlefield 1 here, but it still feels now like a good Battlefield. Now, the thing to remember though is there's still not enough maps. The spawns can be dodgy sometimes. It needs more main modes if the player base can support it. So something like Frontlines, Operations. How big was that in Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 5? But it is now very, very playable. And I've been thinking about this a lot, and I think one of the big differences is emotion. And I think why I particularly really like Battlefield 1, and I guess Battlefield 5 to an extent as well, is the emotion that you get when playing the game. The immersion you feel from that emotion. So that's tied into the graphics, the sound, treating the era with the respect that it's due. But really, the music makes a massive part. And I think Battlefield 1 had such great music that lifted you as you were, fighting these large engagements that felt like real battles that mattered. And even in Battlefield 4, when you would start a match, you'd be charging off the spawn, and there'd be tanks rolling past, jeeps, helicopters and jets flying overhead, and it felt amazing, didn't it? Something else to bear in mind is that the control scheme obviously is different for some, you remember, they changed the control scheme from Battlefield 1 to Battlefield 5, mainly to do with the way you do the gadgets, and it changed again to Battlefield 2042, so you'll have to get used to that. It has pretty horrendous load times most of the time when you're loading in and out of matches, so that sucks. One thing that surprised me was my feelings about the advanced movement, in particular the wingsuit. I haven't had to go with the grappling hook. I've seen a couple of people using it, but the wingsuit actually I've really enjoyed using. I remember swearing at some point that I would never play a Battlefield that had like a grappling hook or a wingsuit in, because they're just stupid. They don't belong on Battlefield, but yeah, I've enjoyed my time with the wingsuit, so you may well too. Portal. I was expecting to fire up the Portal page and see all these Battlefield modes from old games, but there wasn't really much there at all, so that was very disappointing. There were just these weird mashups, so I felt that was a bit of a missed opportunity. And so, so should you buy it? And I guess, as the title of this video goes, or it will be, ask yourself, can you get it cheap? I would say Battlefield 2042 at this point should be £25 max for PC, or the cross-gen version on console. That's what it should be going at, less than half price, because it really is still just a partial game. There's no campaign, there's limited maps and modes, Portal seems to be a mess, and Hazard Zone seems to be a bit of a non-event. You're really just buying Conquest, Breakthrough and Rush. You'll also have to ask yourself, do you have a Battlefield that plays like a Call of Duty casual FPS sized hole in your gaming schedule? No. So are you missing this sort of game? Are you prepared to be behind the skill and the unlock curve? You join the game now, lots of people have been playing it since launch, so they're pretty damn good, and they've unlocked everything where you wouldn't have unlocked much. And you also ask yourself, are you better off just going back and playing Battlefield 5, Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 4? Because many people are still playing those on console and PC. And ultimately, do you have any better games to play? Do you want a Call of Duty replacement until Modern Warfare 2 2022 comes out near the end of October? Or maybe, if Modern Warfare 2 isn't any good, then this could be your kind of Call of Duty replacement? And I think if the answers that are yes, then you buy it cheap. So will I buy it? Well, I've got loads of DayZ content to make at the moment, and the Modern Warfare 2 2022 beta is just around the corner. Been getting into Arma 3, been continuing with Reforger, Hell Let Loose I should be playing more of, and personally I don't think I have the time to commit to Battlefield 2042 to play it beyond casually, so I wouldn't be able to make content apart from Let's Plays. And although Battlefield 2042 is definitely now a fun game to play, I've got better games and ones that are more productive for my channel to play. Okay, so that was the first part of the review, and I kind of like to make notes and basically write the review as I'm playing the game. I don't kind of wait to the end. As I get thoughts, I'll kind of in between rounds, I'll stop and I'll write a few things down, and then I'll carry on playing, and then I'll write a few things more down. And so that's how I felt after mainly playing the online multiplayer Conquest. Again, as I said, a lot of time on the new Stranded map, but I wasn't really satisfied with what I'd seen of Portal, because I remember watching the trailers where, they had all the Germans fighting the Americans of the wrong era, that sort of stuff. And, I'd played the World War II maps on launch, but the gameplay was pretty poor. But I couldn't believe that Portal would have been abandoned just for what I saw on the Portal page on the game. So I started to do a little digging, and sure enough, in public matchmaking, Portal is pretty quiet. I think there's like community nights that people have where it kind of fills up. But, and this is what's hidden because you can't really see it in the game, you can make up your own game modes, and I guess I knew that you could do this. So you could have Battlefield 1942 maps playing Conquest, but what turned out to be the game changer is that you can fill the game with AI, because you're not going to get real players to fill your server. I mean, it's just not going to happen now with Battlefield 2042. And these AI matches, single player matches if you like, are absolutely amazing. Now, you've got to go to the EA website to create Portal games, which is absolutely crazy. But once you do, and you play it a few times, and you start to think about the possibilities, I think that Portal is worth the price of admission alone. I think we've got another case of where probably the best part of this Battlefield game isn't the main multiplayer, it's Portal, in the same way that you could argue that within Battlefield 5, the best bit of Battlefield 5 was Firestorm. But Firestorm and Portal are hidden inside this really expensive multiplayer game, when they should really be span off for free or to be very, very cheap. Because if you think about, and you're probably saying, what are you talking about single player? Well, if you think about what you don't like about multiplayer Battlefield when you're playing it, so let's say it's a Battlefield that you enjoy playing, whether that be Battlefield 4, Battlefield 1, Battlefield 5, whatever. If you have a bad game, a lot of it comes down to what other people are doing. Perhaps it's the people on your squad or your team who aren't playing the objective. Perhaps it's snipers on the opposing team who keep camping and they're just taking the fun out of the game. Or maybe there's like an enemy helicopter pilot who's just amazing and keeps slaughtering everybody. Well, with these AI games, you don't have to worry about that because you can adjust the intelligence so they're not that accurate if you want. But let me tell you, on default, they can be a bit of a challenge. But they do play the objective. They do get into vehicles and drive around, and they do get into helicopters and planes, and they're flying around the map. And in the 64-player games, you get all the chaos of Battlefield. You get planes overhead, you get the tanks, you get people driving around in jeeps. The AI jump into enemy vehicles as well. So if the enemy abandon, like say you're playing as the Americans against the Germans, and the Germans abandon a Tiger, if there's any Americans nearby, they'll jump in and start using it, which is a typical Battlefield moment. You get the vehicles smashing into each other and all this sort of stuff, and they're all blasting away at each other, and it is very, very cool. And I've got to say, I am a total convert to AI in Battlefield. Now, I mean, honestly, before 2042 came out, and they were talking about the idea that there was going to be bots in the game, and the idea that they were actually and they have it still now. When you go into Conquest, it says, do you want to play Conquest multiplayer or do you want to play Conquest single player? That idea was laughable. I was like, joking, who would want to play Battlefield, one of the greatest multiplayer franchises of all time, against bots? But I tell you, it really works. I find it brilliant fun. And you know what? The other really cool thing, there's never going to be any cheaters when you're playing against bots. There's never going to be anybody with an aim bot on it or using radar or something like this. I remember in Portal, I was playing as the Germans against the Americans on the Battle of the Bulge map. It's a Battlefield 1942 map, you get a couple of them. And we were defending a flag, and the Americans were just coming at us, attacking at us with tanks and infantry. And I got that Battlefield shiver you get down your spine, I felt like I was part of the battle. It was incredibly cinematic, and I almost had a tear in my eye about how this is how Battlefield should be. And I was so happy to have it back and be playing it. Now, the thing is though, not only can you play some of the Battlefield 1942 maps, obviously they've been remastered, Battlefield 3 maps, Bad Company 2 and the Battlefield 2042 maps, you don't have to play them with the default soldiers or even the weapons or vehicles. So, you can fight as World War II US soldiers versus German soldiers, but on the new map, Stranded. You could have Shermans and Panzers slugging it out, or you could play with the sort of Modern Warfare era Battlefield 3 soldiers versus the Battlefield 1942 World War II German soldiers with the relative equipment on a Battlefield 3 map. Now, I don't want to repeat myself, but it looks amazing, and honestly, it plays very, very well, especially if you're an average player like myself. I'm not that good, but I enjoy playing Battlefield. I won't be at the top of the leaderboard. At the height of my days of Battlefield 1, if I tried really, really hard and played an assault character, I could get to the top. But, I don't play Battlefield enough anymore to do that sort of thing. But this gave me a very satisfying single player that felt like a multiplayer experience. So if you can't tell, after finding out more about the possibilities of the Portal mode and playing it myself quite a lot, and finding that the single player mode really of Battlefield 2042, it's almost as good as a good Battlefield multiplayer, I absolutely have to say that Battlefield 2042 is worth buying cheap. Just get it, and start messing around with, obviously, the multiplayer stuff, but the Portal single player matches against AI, and I think you'll love it. And look, okay, so this isn't a Battlefield 1 or a Battlefield 4 or even a Battlefield 5. It might just be alright, but it's way better than it was at launch. It's definitely worth sort of £25 of anybody's money. And DICE have definitely changed my mind about Battlefield 2042 in 10 hours. Whew, okay, so there we go. That's enough from me. So I guess you're going to be seeing some more Battlefield 2042 content fairly soon. If you've got any questions or comments, what do you think? Put them below the description. If you enjoyed the video, like. If you want to see more of the same, press subscribe, and I will of course see you again soon.